So what if I told you that the single greatest force that has shaped human psychology for, well, millennia is about to disappear? And no, we're not talking about science fiction here. We're talking about the end of scarcity and the radical, fundamental rewiring of the human mind that comes right along with it. This is all about the next stage of our civilizational journey.
And this really is the central question of our whole analysis today. For our entire history, our psychology, our fears, what drives us, how we build our societies, it's all been hardwired by one simple, brutal fact: there isn't enough. So the biggest question we have to ask ourselves now is, what on earth happens to the human mind when that constant nagging pressure is finally gone?
To figure out where we're going, we first have to get a really clear picture of where we are right now. The source material for this explainer frames our current world as a Day 2 civilization. Think of it as an era where the entire operating system is built on the logic of scarcity. This definition is so important because it doesn't describe our world by our ideals, but by our limitations. Day 2 is all about industrial extraction, competition between countries, and that constant, never-ending struggle for resources. And listen, this isn't some kind of moral judgment. It's just the structural reality that has programmed our psychology for centuries. And living in this kind of world has direct psychological consequences. I mean, think about it. When there isn't enough to go around, competition isn't greedy, it's just logical. Fear isn't a weakness, it's an adaptive, totally essential survival tool. And thinking short-term isn't a flaw, it's a necessity when you're just focused on making it to the next paycheck. These aren't character flaws, not at all. They're the software that our environment installed in us.
But here's the thing, that era is coming to an end. And it's not ending because of some political ideology or a utopian fantasy. It's ending because the technological and infrastructural foundation of our world is changing in a fundamental and irreversible way.
This right here is the core argument. For the first time in human history, having enough food, energy, and housing for every single person is no longer a question of physical possibility. It's now a question of distribution and political will. Scarcity is shifting from being a law of nature to being a relic of an old system. It's an outdated design choice that we're just still clinging to.
And you know what? The evidence for this transition is literally all around us. Take energy, the master resource of any civilization. It's becoming radically cheaper as renewables are now outcompeting fossil fuels. Automation is starting to finally break that ancient link between human labor and basic survival. The digital world has already given us a taste of this abundance with its nearly infinite information. And maybe the most important sign of all is a cultural one. Younger generations are just flat out rejecting these old scarcity stories and demanding a better design for our world.
Now, these huge technological and cultural shifts aren't just changing our world on the outside. They're kickstarting a profound change on the inside, too. And this brings us right to the heart of it all. What happens inside our heads when we finally move from a mindset of fear to one of possibility?
Here, you can see the two mindsets laid out side by side. On the left, you've got the scarcity mindset of Day 2. It's rooted in fear, which of course leads to competition, extraction, and a focus on just plain survival. But on the right, you see the emerging abundance mindset of what we might call a Day 3 civilization. It's based on possibility. Now, this doesn't mean we're all just naive optimists. It means that when our basic needs are met, cooperation and regeneration actually become the most logical strategies for all of us to flourish.
So, what does that actually feel like? Well, that constant, low-level hum of survival anxiety, it starts to fade away. And that frees up an immense amount of our mental and emotional energy. Creativity and curiosity, things that were once luxuries, they become our default way of being. We can finally start thinking in terms of generations, not just quarters. Our very identity begins to shift from being defined by what we do to survive to being defined by who we are and what we choose to create.
Okay, so if we're not just trying to survive anymore, then what's the point of it all? This massive internal psychological shift naturally leads to a radical redefinition of human purpose, both for us as individuals and for society as a whole.
Let's just pause on this quote for a second, because it really is at the absolute core of this shift. For centuries, the question, what do you do, has really just been code for how do you survive economically? How do you earn your keep? In a post-scarcity world, that same question completely transforms. It becomes, what's your gift? How do you contribute to our shared world?
This change in individual purpose has a massive collective effect. When millions and millions of people shift from a mindset of competition to one of contribution,
the entire architecture of civilization itself begins to transform. We start to evolve from just being a collection of rival tribes into a coordinated planetary species.
And this is what that actually looks like in practice. Energy stops being a geopolitical weapon and becomes a shared global grid. Ecosystems are no longer just national assets to be exploited, but a shared responsibility we all have to restore. Global risks, everything from pandemics to climate change, get managed collectively because national rivalry becomes just dangerously counterproductive. And governance itself shifts from being a game of dominance to an active planetary stewardship.
So, the crucial point is this: the end of scarcity isn't the end of the story. It's really just a beginning of a new one. It frees us up to finally ask the single most important question we've ever faced as a species. Once survival is taken care of, who and what will we choose to become?